Okay, so let's get started. So, hi everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Rafi Schulman, and I'm the co-founder of Olim Advisors. I'd like to just take a moment and introduce you to the people who are joining me tonight. We'll start off with Avram Levinsky, who is a real estate lawyer. Then I'd like to introduce you to Natan Nagar, who is a mortgage advisor. And last but not least, to Brian Becker, who's one of our employees here at Olim Advisors. So thanks, guys, for joining us. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
What I'd like to do is really talk about how we can help people go through this process of buying a home, finding a mortgage. Today we have over 150 people who have joined us from around the country and around the world. And it's, people that are looking for advice, they're looking for some tips, they're looking for information, they're looking for guidance. And that's really the reason why we're putting these webinars together, is to really provide this information with you to you, and to connect you with people who can help you accomplish whatever your goal is. There are a few quick things I just want to share with you before we get started. The first thing is that we are going to be recording this. We are recording this. So if you've come late or if you have to leave early, don't worry about it. We're going to send an email within the next couple of days with a link to the recording so that you can watch it over again at your convenience. And also feel free to share it with anybody who couldn't have attended today. The second thing is that we'll have a contact information throughout the presentation, so you can reach out to us. And what I want to really encourage you to do is to connect with us, because we know that we're not going to be able to get to everybody's questions. We know we're not going to be able to get to everyone's situation and really get into the nitty gritty, into the details. And so we want to help you by having one-on-one conversations. So either reach out to us and schedule a call, or we're going to follow up with you. Brian's going to follow up with you in the next few days, next few weeks, to find time so we can really understand what your goals are, what your dreams are, what your concerns, what your fears are, and really help you figure out what's the right plan of action moving forward. Okay. Before we get started, I just want to take a couple of minutes and just give you a little bit of background for those of you who are not familiar with Olim Advisors, who we are and what we do. So we started Olim Advisors back in 2016, and we had really two goals in mind. The first goal was to really encourage and to help people who are looking to make Aliyah. So whether it's finding the right community, finding schools for the kids, or finding a home beforehand, or making any of the pre-Aliyah decisions that are so hard to make when you're afar. So we're here to really guide you through that process, to help you, to give you information. And then once you get to Israel, that's when there's a lot of challenges, whether it's dealing with bureaucracy, dealing with just day-to-day life. It's a different culture, it's a different language. And so things come up that people just need help with. And so we're here to give you that information, to give you that guidance, to give you that peace of mind that there's somebody that you can turn to. And of course, a big part of this is buying a home in Israel, whether you're made Aliyah a long time ago and you live in Israel, you're making Aliyah in the near future, or maybe you just want to have a home in Israel and you're not planning on making Aliyah, but you want to have a connection. So there's a process, there's things that you need to do, things that you need to avoid doing, and that's really what we want to accomplish in this webinar. So it's a pleasure having you here, and we can get started with the first topic, which is how to go about looking for a home. And so there are a lot of factors that go into this, and I want to kind of go through them in an order of importance. So the first thing is determining your budget. You need to know approximately how much you can afford. If you can't afford to live in Tel Aviv or live in Yerushalayim or Netanya, it doesn't make sense to spend time and effort looking at those cities. So you really need to figure out how much you can afford, and that's really a function of two things. The first thing is, how much can you put down as a down payment? Now, something that's important that you realize, and Natan and Avram will talk about this a little bit, is that Israeli residents can get up to 75% mortgage. So you can put down 25% and get 75% mortgage. Foreign residents have to put down 50% and can only get a 50% mortgage. So that's the first thing that you really need to think through, is how much can you put down? And then the second thing is your ongoing monthly mortgage payments. How much can you carry every month? How much can you pay every month? And so that's something that you really need to do first before you start looking for communities. Once you've done that, then you can start making a list of possible communities based on your preferences. So, for example, do you want a religious community, or maybe it's a secular community? Do you want to live by the beach? Do you want to live in an Anglo bubble or a large Anglo community? Or maybe you want more of a mix. Maybe you want to live in, in a community that has a larger Israeli community, Israeli population. Do you want to live in a suburban area where there's more homes, or an urban area, city environment where you have more buildings and everything's more accessible? These are really important factors that you need to think about that will help you make an initial list. And what I strongly recommend that you do is really cast a wide net. In other words, put down a lot of communities that maybe at the end don't meet your needs, but as communities to consider. There's the list of communities that most people are familiar with, but then there's a lot of other communities that people haven't heard of. Maybe they're not in the center of Israel. Maybe they're communities that are up and coming. And so this is a great opportunity for you to have that long list. You can always narrow it down. And what you should do at that point to narrow it down, actually, a few things. First of all, is you want to talk to residents. You want to talk to people who live in each of these communities to really get the inside information. And this is something that we know is hard to do from afar, whether you're in the US, UK, South Africa. And so this is one area where we can help you, is introducing you to people who live in these communities, who can talk to you about the different neighborhoods, who can talk to you about the different schools, and so on and so forth. So that's very important. The other thing is, if you can, come and visit, drive around. You don't have to spend days going through a community. You can spend 3, 4 hours driving around, seeing what it looks like, seeing what the people who live in that area, what it looks like, getting a sense of the vibe of the community, because that's something that is extremely important. And once you've done this, then you can narrow it down to a list of 3 or 4 communities. I would say try and stick to that number of communities, the ones that really check most of the boxes, the ones that meet most of your preferences. Once you've done that, then it's important for you to reach out and find realtors in each community that can help you. And this is really important because you want to work with somebody who understands the mindset of somebody who is buying from abroad, or understands the mindset of somebody who has made Aliyah and doesn't understand the process or isn't familiar with the communities. There are a lot of realtors that speak English, but it's not the same as working with somebody who has made Aliyah, somebody who really can understand the level of service that you're entitled to, or somebody that, even if they're not Anglo, if they haven't made Aliyah, somebody who deals with a lot of Anglos who can really, help you in the way that you need to be helped. So that will help you now start finding finding homes. Once you've done that, or as you're doing this, it's really important that you have your ducks in order. And what I mean by that is that you want to have your real estate lawyer. He or she will probably be the most important individual in the transaction. They're going to, make sure that you're not being taken advantage of, that everything is legitimate. And so you want to identify that person, talk to that person before you start looking. The other person that you should talk to is a mortgage advisor. You may not be thinking about getting a mortgage, but it's still worthwhile having that conversation, because you might be pleasantly surprised. Maybe the rates are better, maybe the conditions are better, maybe you're older and you don't think that you can get a mortgage, and you are entitled to go, you can get one. And so it's really important that you work with the mortgage broker, and if you are going to get one, to get pre-approval. And the last thing is to ideally have your money in Israel. So either money in a bank account or in a transfer company account. So at least to cover that deposit, because what's going to happen is, once you start looking and you seriously start looking, you're going to find things that you like. And once you find things that you like, you have to move quickly. And that's the issue. If you don't have a lawyer, if you haven't transferred money, if you're not pre-approved for a mortgage, those things can take days and weeks, and you could end up losing your property. So these are just things to keep in mind as you start your search, or as you focus on communities, that will help you create a framework and really help you focus your efforts. Okay. So with that, I'd like to turn over to Natan, who's going to talk to you about mortgages in Israel.
All right, thanks, Rafi. So what I'm gonna really try and go through in the time that we have on this webinar is really looking at what it means to have a mortgage, but more specifically, what it means to have an Israeli mortgage, right? Because a mortgage at its core is the bank trying to find something to backstop such a large loan? You don't want to give somebody $1 million and then hope that they're going to pay you back. And the bank is the same way. And it says nothing about you guys as clients. It's just the way of the world. But at the same time, there are also many more details to take into account when you're looking at mortgages. So as we move on to the next slide, I really want to highlight some of the special differences in an Israeli mortgage by matching it up with, your classic US 30-year fixed rate mortgage. So number one is that with an Israeli mortgage, you can get variable rates. Variable rates means that you can have it vary on a monthly basis, every month, every 12 months on a yearly basis, every 2 years, 2.5 years. Bank of Olim very recently came out with an every 3 years, every 5 years, every 7 years. There are actually a lot of options. And that also helps with tailoring what your specific needs are in terms of a mortgage. The other thing that you're able to do in Israel is you're able to index it to Israeli CPI. There is a time and a place for it. In fact, the government subsidized loan known as Zakaut is actually a fixed rate that is indexed to Israeli CPI. The main advantage is that it has lower interest rates, and that has a time and place. The duration, even if you're going for a fixed rate or a variable rate or index, so on and so forth, you can decide, do I want it to be for 30 years? Do I want it to be for 25 years? Do I want it to be for 17 years? You can pick really, even 10 years. You can pick how long you want the mortgage to last for. And it's important to kind of approach it with that level of flexibility instead of just assuming, hey, let's go with the classic 30 years, because everybody's different. And it really does pay to tailor the mortgage to your needs. You can decide to make your mortgage, a mortgage that's instead of in Israeli shekels, it's in dollars or in euros. Obviously, it depends on where you're coming from. Even if you're here in Israel, but you're making money abroad and you like to, kind of minimize your exposure to different markets, that's something that can be taken into account. And finally, you can really mix and match, meaning you can have subloans in each of them can represent some of these, different options. And you can have multiple subloans that each, kind of fit something that all together in their sum total really helps fit the mortgage to your needs. So that's really some of the differences between, U.S. and Israeli mortgages. And if we just get into the numbers, right, another one of the big differences is in your LTV. So your loan to value, that basically means that if you're taking out, a mortgage for a home that's worth $1 million, and you have a mortgage that's going to be 600,000, that's 60% of the value of the home, loan to value. That's the ratio. And so that would be 60% LTV. If it's 750,000 or 450,000, so on and so forth, those represent the different, LTVs that you can get. Like Rafi mentioned, if you're an Israeli citizen or if you're living as a resident here in Israel, you can get up to 75% for your first home. If you own a single property, so, if you're selling one property and buying another property, but at the end of the entire deal, you're only going to have one property, then you can get up to 70%. If you're going for multiple properties or you're non-citizens, and it's up to 50%. And those really are the general guidelines. In this next slide, we're going to be looking at, income. Income is also a bit different here in Israel. Israeli banks will look at up to 34 to 39% of your income. And so what that means is your net income. So we're looking at income after taxes. And you also have to subtract all of your expenses. So if you have car loans, bank loans, any sort of, monthly help that you give family members, something that really shows up on your bank statements on a monthly basis, then that also needs to get subtracted. So for example, if you have after loans, after taxes, after everything, you're making monthly income of around 10,000, then you can get a monthly payment, a mortgage with a monthly payment of up to 3,900. So that's what that looks like. And obviously for income, you can take into account multiple sources of income. If you're coming from the States, that generally, all comes together in your 1040. If you're here in Israel, then you would show, for example, if it's a rental, you would show the contracts, etc. And also, really, this is another area where if you have a lot going on, it really does pay to be creative and to try and pull everything together so that you can show that you have a very high income. In this next slide, we're going to just go through budgeting. These are really, really simple ideas, and at the same time, they're really potent. They really do go a long way in making your mortgage cheap. And that's really the goal, that when you take out a mortgage, like, you need to get financing, you're looking to get the financing, but you want to get the financing where you're paying the banks as little as possible. And so it pays to ask two questions. Number one is, how much money do you really need? Because if you're taking out a large mortgage, the larger the mortgage, then the larger your monthly payments are. And at the same time, the larger the amount of interest, the sum total of the interest that you're going to have to pay the bank by the end. And the second thing is, when you're looking at your monthly payments with an Israeli mortgage, because of all the other aforementioned, options of taking out variable rates, or semi-fixed rates, or indexing, so on and so forth, your monthly payments may change over time. And it's important to understand that as you go through the life of your mortgage, and your mortgage accompanies you throughout your life, that on the way to get from A to Z, you have to pass through B, C, D, etc., and make sure that at all points you're still being safe, and not taking undue risk. So that really touches on, in these slides, the basics of what a mortgage is, and some of the specialties that you can really include in your mortgage, with Israeli mortgages. On the next slide, I just really want to point out that it's important to approach this with both historical perspective, and also take into account what the forecasts are as we go through the next slide and the slide after that. It's really important to approach it from a numbers point of view, because sometimes you're dealing with such large numbers for the first time, and you're not quite sure what it is that you should be doing. And once you put numbers to it, it actually makes things a lot simpler than trying to muddle your way through on just an emotional basis. As we move on to the next slide, I do want to talk about some of those options that are lesser known options. Like I mentioned, when you're looking at getting a mortgage, for your first time, you can get up to 75%. That's with a banking mortgage. However, you can get a non-banking, excuse me, you can get a non-banking mortgage that comes alongside your 75%, so that your sum total is 85%, right? And you can really use both the banks and the non-banking lenders to your full advantage. You can get business mortgages, and we're even talking about foreign businesses. If you have a business that's doing well, and you don't want to approach it for whatever reason, you don't want to approach it through your own, individual avenue of your own private life, then you can also approach it as a business mortgage. And there's a time and place for that. Obviously, once we're talking about a business mortgage, then we're not dealing with, central banking regulation on residential mortgages, because this is not a regular residential mortgage. And there are a lot of options there. Retirees also have a lot of options, whether you're talking about your classic pensioner's mortgage, which Mizrahi started with, around 3 years ago, and then Bank Leumi came in just almost a year ago at this point. And Bank Yerushalayim just a few weeks ago also jumped onto the scene. That's a great thing that I love seeing, because it really provides a lot of competition, which at the end of the day means that my clients get the best. You can get a reverse mortgage. There are all these ways to approach it, because a lot of times, once you're entering that later stage of your life, your income is not the same as you're used to. And finally, you can get larger LTV for single citizen spouses. That's also an option when you're mixing banking lenders and non-banking lenders. You can even get a second mortgage from a different bank on the same home. Known in Israel as a second-degree mortgage, or mashkanta bedarga shniya. So there are really a lot of options out there. If you want to retain some of your, great conditions that you got maybe in 2020, 2021. So there really are a lot of options out there. And it really pays to ask. It really pays to ask, to find out what it is that's both best for you and possible for you. So that really sums it up. Some of the most frequently asked questions that I get are, when should I reach out? And the answer is, before you start shopping. Number one, because you want to know what you're shopping for. You need to have your budget in mind. You need to know what your financing capabilities are. You need to know what your monthly payments would potentially look like. So definitely before you're shopping, but also that really, provides us, meaning myself and potentially clients, with the time that if we need to, work things over, touch things up on our bank statements, work some things around, move some things around, we have the time. Time is one of the great equalizers that really helps us approach things without, figuring things out at the last minute with our backs to the wall and stressed. And it's just not the right way to do things. Excuse me. It's just an easier way of approaching it. I do mortgages all over Israel, and all over Israel really does mean all over Israel. And if you have any further questions, I'd love to answer them. That's what we're all here for. And you can reach out to Rafi and ask him to put us in touch.
And here's also Natan's information. You can reach out to Natan as well. And I just want to chime in and add something quickly. Just earlier today, a couple of hours ago, I got an email from somebody who said, I'm 86 years old. Can I get a mortgage? And I forwarded it on to Natan. And he said, yeah, absolutely. There are a few options to consider where this individual assumed that he's too old. And so this is just a great example of the benefits of asking, the benefits of looking and talking to people, because there are a lot of options that you might not be aware of. And I know that Natan kind of ran through this and shared a lot of information which might seem overwhelming, but I can tell you from first-hand experience that if you talk to him, he will really dumb it down, he'll simplify it, he'll go through, because I had this issue when I had to get a mortgage. It got pretty confusing, and if you work with the right person, they can really simplify it and hold your hand through the entire process. So feel free to reach out to me or reach out to Natan, and I'll be happy to help you. Thank you, Natan.
Absolutely.
Okay, Abraham, we're up to you. You can talk about the legal aspect of purchasing a property in Israel.
Thank you, Rafi. And first of all, shalom. Hello to everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to speak with you guys. I see that we have currently 62 people, which is quite impressive. And we'll be happy to try to help to all of you personally and also throughout this Zoom conversation to share with you important information and try to assist you and to give you also some interesting points to think about. So let's just start. And maybe one more sentence before we're starting. I want to just to put you in mind what I'm doing. So I'm a real estate attorney, as Rafi said. I work together with all of those amazing people here, Rafi Schulman, Nathan Nagar, and Brian Becker. We do many things, and throughout a yearly calendar year, we do like around 100 transactions only for overseas investors. So we know what we're doing. We'll be happy to assist to each one of you that have any question, and for sure much more than that. So firstly, I would like to start by this slide to describe to you two main options of purchasing a property in Israel. We have, in general, two main options. I think it's not something unique to Israel. All over the world, you have two main ways to purchase a property. Option number one is to buy a property in the free market, to buy as a second-hand. This is described in this slide in option number B, second-hand purchase. And we have another option, which is to buy from a contractor, to buy something which is under construction or already ready, but it's directly from the contractor who construct the property. This described in the slide in option number A, first-hand purchase. And I will start with the first-hand purchase. I want to start with the advantages of this kind of a process. So we have mainly four advantages that I can think about it right now, and I want to share it with you. Number one, the process is easy and smooth. And when I say easy and smooth, you deal with a big company, big contractor, you know who you stand with, who is dealing with you, and you have someone that you're not on the street. You have something very organized. In this case, we work a lot, for example, with a company called Electra, which Rafi will elaborate later on, I guess. And this is a huge company, and you know who you're facing. It's not something that suddenly someone is going to America and one day after is in the UK. You have someone that you can deal with. This is easy, more smooth in most of the cases of first-hand purchase. And another big advantage is the bank guarantee. I want to give like 30 seconds to explain about the bank guarantee, and if you will remember this from all of what I'm going to say, this will be very beneficial and fruitful. When you buy from a contractor, the contractor is supplying you with a letter, okay, just a letter like that letter. And the letter says that if the contractor will be collapsing, if the contractor will not be able to give you the property, the bank, not the contractor, a bank in Israel, just like Morgan Stanley in the US, so Bank Olim in Israel, will provide you with the money that you already gave to the contractor. That means you are totally protected. And this is the idea of bank guarantees. And I see here in the names some one or two people that already did a transaction with me, and they know they bought from a contractor, and they got these kind of letters that promise, you know, many things can happen, but one thing will not happen: you will not lose your money. Okay, so this is the second advantage, which is bank guarantee. The third advantage is the warranty. When I say a warranty, I'm speaking about liability for the contractor to the physical situation of the property. That's mean if there will be any defect, any problem, leaks, many things that happens in Israel, leaks, and you know, any problem in the electricity, in the plumbing, the contractor has to fix those kind of issues. And the last advantage, which I want to elaborate here, is the 2080. When I say 2080, what I meant to say here is that the schedule of payments a lot of the time can be 20% of down payment, and 80% when the property is ready within 2, 3, 4 years. This give you a lot of flexibility. You can you know, think about it. You pay tomorrow 20%, and only in 3 years' time you pay another 80% to the contractor. And by the meantime, you already have a property that is under construction, and the 80% of the other funds are just doing another money in something. So these are the 4 advantages. And I want now to describe the disadvantages of this process very shortly. Mainly, we have 3 disadvantages of the process of purchasing from first hand. Number 1, there is an index. I want also to give 30 seconds to this. When you buy from a contractor, and I will elaborate personally if someone wants and interested to understand, the bottom line, you know, I will make it more simple because I don't want to go very much to the details. But the bottom line, when you buy from a contractor, the price that you are being told 99% of the times is not the final price. Why? Because there is index. When I say index, there is like some kind of a linkage to the CPI, if I want to make it simple. So just keep this in mind. This is disadvantage. The price can be more expensive. Another thing, that you're not getting any rent until the property is being ready. Okay, so if you have the 2080, the option to buy with 20% down payment, but in the meantime, you're not getting any rent. And the third disadvantage is that you have less room for negotiation. That's means you are buying from a contractor, you are buying from a big company. They will not play games. You know, they have their own limits. They have their borders. These are the playground. You know, they will not go too much here and there. They will not accept 5% in signing, not 10%. 99% from the contractors will not go down from 50%, 15%, for example. So these are the descriptions, details of the process from first-hand purchase. I want to also dedicate 2 minutes to describe the second-hand purchase. Number 1, we have 3 advantages from second-hand purchase. Number 1, we have more supply. When I'm saying more supply, you can choose wherever you want, which city you want. You know, there is no any limitation to specific areas of new constructions. This is more supply. Second, we have more room for negotiation. That means that in general, when you deal with a person face-to-face, private person, you have more options to speak with him, to describe with him. And the third advantage is that you have the third one is that you have fixed price without index. Okay, this is written in the last thing in the line. So there's no index, fixed price. It is what it is. The disadvantage of buying secondhand is that number 1, you are buying as is. That means no warranty, no liability. Seller will not fix property for you if there are any leaks, any electricity problem, etc. Number 2. You need to take the loan fast, and as Natan described, currently interest rates not the best, you know, not the best like it was 2 years ago. I'm sure Natan will elaborate about it more if anyone will want to know. But in the same time, no one knows what will happen in the future. And the third disadvantage is that you have less collateral. You're not getting the letter I told you, but we still have a very safe transaction. Either way you will choose, we have a very 2 ways and safe ways for the transaction. You can move to the next slide, Rafi. Thanks. I want to give you also a short description of tax in the process. We have 2 taxes. Number 1, purchase tax, which is only applied when we buy a property. This is why it's called purchase tax. And the other one is land betterment tax. This kind of tax is applied only when we sell a property. Now I want to go a bit more interesting for you about Israeli residents. So if someone is Israeli resident, we have 2 options how to describe what would be his taxes. Number 1, if he has no property and this is his first property, he will have a very good cheap purchase tax. Option number two, if he has already a property, then the law will determine that this Israeli resident will be considered as an investment. Therefore, we will pay 8% purchase tax. Now I'm coming to the third point, non-Israeli resident. Due to the fact that non-Israeli resident buying in Israel as an investment, so he's automatically paying the 8%, just like another Israeli that has already a property in Israel. So non-Israeli residents, keep in mind, pay 8%, unless, I'm coming to the fourth point, he is new Oleh. And if he's new Oleh or his intention is to do Aliyah, then there is a high possibility to reduce significantly the tax, and we will need to speak about that later on privately, and to help to each one of you that will do it. We can move to the next slide, Rafi. Due diligence. In general, we have two main kind of due diligence. Number one, vast due diligence of the property. When I say vast due diligence of the property, I'm speaking about checking that there are no liens, no mortgages, no foreclosures, and no pledges, etc. And if there are some problems like that, how to solve them. I often say that recently I had like a property with 5 foreclosures. We solved that. My target is that you will buy the property. I need to provide you with the solutions in order to be able to buy them safely. The second due diligence is in the third line, vast due diligence of the seller. We also check that the seller is really the owner, that there are no any creditors or debts, open debts to the seller, and we make sure that the property and the seller are safe and we can do the transaction. You can move to the next slide, Rafi. And lastly, I want you to keep in mind three main things to give you as a tzeidah l'derech. I never find a good word for that in English. You need
food for thought.
How?
Food for thought.
And number one, money in Israel. Please bring money in Israel before you sign. Number one. Number two, mortgage need to be ready. Speak with Natan, have a pre-approval. Don't sign a contract before your mortgage is ready in terms of approval in principle, pre-approval. Number three, have a lawyer in Israel before you do anything, and just be in touch. So that's the three main thing. My contact information is in the next slide. And feel free to contact me, Rafi, anyone here. I wish you good luck.
Thank you very much, Avraham. And I can tell you again from first-hand experience with clients that we've referred to Avraham, that he doesn't just deal with the legal aspects of the transaction. There's also the practical things. He's been able to save people a lot of time and effort and simplify the process when people are abroad. He's also been able to save people a lot of money because the financial requirements and costs that go into the transaction, that there are ways of getting around in some situations. And so, just things to keep in mind. This is, like I said before, having somebody like Avraham as part of your team won't just help you through the transaction, but potentially can also save you a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of money. Okay. So now, the last part of the presentation, I want to talk to you about the neighborhood, this beach community that I mentioned to you. Before I start talking about it, I just want to remind you that we are going to do a Q&A session after this. And so as we're going through the presentation, you can go ahead and type your questions in the Q&A window, question and answer window, and then in a few minutes we'll get to them and we will try to answer as many questions as possible. So what makes Achziv special? First of all, it's a beautiful new community. This is an area that I actually know very well because we bought an apartment there about 2 years ago, June of 2021. And when we go up there, it's like heaven on earth. It's quiet, it's peaceful, it's clean, it's beautiful. It really is something that just is so different from a lot of the other cities and communities on the beach that you're familiar with. The actual project is literally a 3-4 minute walk from the beach. So you can come out of your building, you can walk down a path, and you're on the beach in just a few minutes, which is great. And the last and probably the most important part is that you can still buy a beach apartment for as low as 2 million shekel, which is significantly less from the other communities like Ashkelon, Netanya, Tel Aviv, and so on and so forth. And so in many ways, it's the best of both worlds. So where is Achziv? So it's part of Nahariya. Nahariya is in the northern part of Israel. And a lot of people think, oh, it's Nahariya, it's all the way up north, but it's really not as far as people think. In fact, I live near Modi'in, which is in the center of Israel. And very often when I drive, and it can be even in rush hour, I can get to Achziv within an hour and 45 minutes to 2 hours. As you can see, it's an hour and a half to 2 hours from Tel Aviv. It could be a little longer, of course, depending on traffic, but that's kind of what you can expect. If you hop on the train to Nahariya, it's a 2.5 hour ride from Modi'in, and you can hop on the train from any of the cities on the main train line and get to Nahariya. And then once you get to Nahariya, it's literally a 5-minute drive or a 15-minute bus ride. And so you have really two aspects of what a lot of people are looking for. You have this secluded, this quiet, this beautiful area that's part of a main city. Nahariya has the healthcare with the hospitals and the clinics. It has the supermarkets. It has the shopping. It has the restaurants. It has everything that you want, literally within a 5-minute drive. But yet you're not in the middle of the hustle and bustle. And so for many people, it's the best of both worlds. This is an aerial view, and let me just kind of explain to you what you see here. So this is a development that is being led by Electra. Electra is a public company in Israel. It's one of the largest companies in Israel. It's one of the largest construction companies in Israel. As you can see, it's at 16 acres. On the right side of the picture, it's actually facing south. The left side of the picture is facing north. The sea, as you can see, is really so close to the buildings, and the green area that you see between the buildings and the houses is the nature preserve, the Achziv National Preserve reservoir, and that's protected by law. So nobody can build. You're not going to see, high rises or houses going up anywhere between what's in this picture and what you see in the sea. The initial plans were to build 29 buildings, about 750 apartments. That has since been expanded to about, when everything is said and done in the next few years, there'll be 37 buildings, about 1,000 apartments. There are already 24 buildings that have been built, and now they're working on the next phase, which is the next 6 buildings. So as I mentioned, the 6 buildings, 9 floors per building, 32 apartments per building. So there's 192 apartments that are being built. There's only about 25, 30 apartments that are left. This is a project that we've been involved with for about a year, and they're definitely moving quickly. When you look at the rendition there of the building, you'll see the 2 balconies that are facing forward. So those are the 4-bedroom or the 5-room apartments. Those are the bigger apartments. And then you'll see on the wings, you have the 4-room or the 3-bedroom apartments. What's nice about these buildings, and really the way that the whole community has been designed, is that the first 2 floors, once you go above the first 2 floors, every apartment will have a view of the sea. What's being built in front of these buildings are actually private homes. So people who bought property are now building private homes that won't go higher than, in essence, the first floor. So you have the ground or the garden apartment, you have the first floor. Those apartments will not have views of the sea, but once you go above that, every apartment will have a view. Here's just a different angle. The left side of the picture, which is a little darker, those are the buildings that are being built, and you can see renditions of the homes. Some of the homes are being built. The lighter part of the picture is where the 6 buildings are being built right now. You can see from left to right, it's A, B, C, D, E, and F. I'll talk about the timeline in a moment, but you can see really how it's laid out. You can see how, the views to the sea, how there's a lot of space. What's also nice, towards the beach, there's actually a small commercial center that is being built. So you'll have a few stores there. You'll probably have a coffee shop, a little grocery. And so, people will be able to walk around and do some shopping in this area without having to leave. Here are just a couple of renditions of what the apartments will look like. The top right one is the penthouse, and you can see the balcony, you can see the view. It's really spectacular. The bottom right is the garden apartment. We have a tremendous space for hosting. If you have a family, you can put a pool in there. So really a lot of great outdoor space. And as you can see from the two photos on the left side, just a lot of light, a lot of room, really, in apartments that people will very much enjoy living in. This is just a rendition of what the city, the community will look like. And like I said, I've been there. I was just there a few weeks ago, and this is really what it looks like. A lot of open area, a lot of green, just very quiet, very peaceful. But at the same time, also a vibrant community. Right now, there's about 450 families that are living there. And, as the new phase is going to be built, there will be a lot more that are moving. So what's the timeline? The timeline for the first 4 buildings is slated to be April 2025, but they're actually way ahead of schedule. The contractor, the developer, is projecting now that these will be ready towards the end of 2024. So a good 6 months ahead of schedule. And buildings 5 and 6 were scheduled to be completed in December 2025. Those are also a good few months ahead of schedule. In terms of pricing, as I mentioned to you, the 4 rooms apartments, the 3 bedrooms, average price starts at 2 million shekels. So, it depends on which building, which floor. It might vary a little bit, but that's, the price point for the 4 bedroom, the 5 room apartments. Those are going for 2.6 million shekel on average. The garden apartments, also 4 bedrooms, are 2.7 million shekel. And the penthouses, also 4 rooms, are going for 4.9 million shekel. Now, anyone that's been following currencies and the dollar and the shekel knows that the dollar has really strengthened over the past year. And so a year ago it was about 3.3 shekel to the dollar. Now it's about 3.8. So the prices, in essence, or your purchasing power, has increased dramatically over the past year. And the prices of the apartments have stayed the same. So in essence, you're getting more for your money if you're coming from the US, UK, from Australia. As was mentioned before, there are a number of payment plans that are available where you can put down 20% and then pay off the remaining over time. So, something definitely to consider, whether it's a place that you want to move to and live, or you want to have it as an investment, or if it's a place that you want to have as a vacation home. It really can fit a lot of different kind of scenarios and really meet people's goals in a variety of different ways. So this is my contact information. You can definitely reach out to me about this project. If you want to buy something in other areas, we have contacts with realtors throughout the country. We can help you find the right community. We can help you find the right property, and we can definitely guide you through the process. So at this point, what I want to just do, we put the poll that we shared beforehand, but some people hadn't joined. So I just want to spend a couple minutes just to really understand what information you're looking for, what's important to you, so we can help you. And then we'll get to the Q&A session in a moment. So give me 1 second here. I'm just going to go ahead and... So if you didn't answer this poll beforehand, if you can just take a moment, to give us a little bit more insight into the topics that are of interest to you. And then we're going to go ahead and turn it and answer some of the questions. In the meantime, I'm just going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm just going to look at some of the questions. Okay, we'll just take another 30 seconds. If you haven't answered the questions, please just do that so that we have a good sense. Okay. Great, thanks so much. I'm just going to go ahead and end it. Okay, so let's get to the questions. And if you haven't answered questions yet, then still feel free to put them in here. So the question here is the best discount for a new Ole to use on a first purchase. So Natan or Avraham, if either one of you can answer this, talking about the purchase tax, right? So there's different scenarios where you can pay less in taxes. So Avraham, maybe if you can answer that, that'd be great.
Thanks, Rafi. So in general, to describe it simple, if you are doing Aliyah, you have two options. That's I mean it's a bit complicated, but I want to make it simple for you. So firstly, after all what I'm saying, please talk to me or to Rafi about your specific privately situation, because again, it's about days. It's about if you're coming in this day to Israel, or if you do the Aliyah in this date, etc. So please speak to us after that. In general, you need to know that if you're doing Aliyah, you can enjoy from two potentially you can enjoy from two discounts. Number one, as a new Ole. Number two, as a new resident. Okay. And again, everything is dependent in exactly what time you're going to come to Israel, if you're going to live in the property or if you're not going to live in the property. So everything is really dependent in the small details. Okay, if someone is buying as an investment and not going to live in the property, he cannot enjoy it from the new Ole property discount. If someone is not doing the Aliyah within a year from the signing, is not going to enjoy the new Ole discount. So there are a few conditions for that, but again, what is the most important for you to remember, that if you want to remember one thing, is that you potentially have two discounts here. Number one, new Ole or a discount. And number two, the Israeli resident first property buyer in a discount. So keep it in mind. Most of us are not aware of that, because again, it's something very, very minor. But you can enjoy from two discounts. You can plan to buy two properties in a very, very cheap discount. And I am not going for sure to give you any advice right now. You have to speak with me, with Rafi, privately. But keep it in mind that you have potential to have two discounts here. Okay, this is the most important.
Great. Nathan, I have a question here for you. Is the mortgage based on a down payment or the amount of being borrowed? What are the financial requirements? If you can just go over that just briefly and explain to somebody, what typically are the financial requirements to be approved for a mortgage, I think that would be helpful.
Right. So it's both the down payment and how much is getting financed. I mean, think of it this way. Whatever you're paying off with the down payment, you don't have to use financing for. Whatever you're using financing for, you don't need to then pay it off with the down payment. So you do need to have a minimal amount in terms of down payment. Again, if it's your first home and you're an Israeli, then you need to have a minimum of 25% for the bank mortgages. Obviously, keep in mind that there are other options out there. And if it's your second home onwards, or you're not an Israeli citizen, then 50% down payment. Again, there are some other options out there, but that really is the tried and tested level. And then in terms of what it takes in order to get a mortgage, in terms of requirements, you really do need to have, as in addition to the down payment, you need to have the income to support those monthly payments that you're going to be making as you pay off the mortgage. So the rule of thumb is, 34 to 39% of your net income. And if that's something that you want to work out over the phone, as Rafi mentioned earlier, I have never had a client who wanted to know something, who by the end of our conversations didn't understand it, didn't have their questions answered. And really feel free to reach out and we can work through if that's something that is possible for you.
Great, thank you, Nathan. The question here about what's a good resource to find real estate agents for communities that this person is interested? So there's two ways to go about it. If you know people in different communities that can recommend somebody, that's a good option. The other option is, of course, coming to us, to Olim Advisors. We have relationships with realtors throughout the country. If we don't, then we'll find a realtor. And what I guess is a little different than just going to somebody who's been referred is that we have a business relationship with the realtors. And so they know that when we refer somebody to them, that they need to take care of them, because if not, we're not going to refer anyone else to them. And also, which is very important for everyone to realize, is that we kind of stay involved in the transaction. It's almost like a conductor of the orchestra. You have all these different players, and somebody from Olim Advisors will kind of oversee the process and make sure that everything is going forward smoothly. And so if you want to, if you want us to introduce you to realtors in the different cities, we're happy to do it. And an important point that I didn't mention beforehand is that we're not a real estate company, which means it doesn't matter to us if you want to buy something up north or buy something down south or east or west. It doesn't matter to us if you have $1 million or $10 million. We started this, and the reason why we're helping people is because we want to protect your interests. We want to make sure that you get what you deserve. So reach out to me and let me know what your plans are, and I can help you and definitely introduce you to realtors in the different communities. There are a couple of questions here about the Achziv community. First of all, it's called Achziv. It's part of the Nahariya city, but it's kind of its own separate development. Nahariya has a main hospital. You know, there are not that many hospitals in Israel. There's a question about hospitals here. So Nahariya does have a main medical center, which is good. People also asked about the community. So the community right now, I would say is 25 to 30% religious, and then about 70% secular, but it is a mix. So there's a shul there. They have minyanim during the week. They have minyanim on Shabbat. Maybe not every minyan during the week, but this is going to change. There's a number of clients that we've helped buy apartments in the community, and I think we'll see more and more observant people that will move to this area. So I think it will continue to grow. It's typically a mix between young families and people in their 50s and 60s, 70s who want to have a vacation home, as I mentioned, or want to retire. And I think it's really turning into an amazing, vibrant community that people that are moving there now will be able to, take a part in building. So I think that's something that a lot of people will enjoy. There are no smaller apartments. There are no 3-room apartments. It's just the 4-room or the 3-bedroom and the 4-bedroom apartments. There's a question here about mortgage rates, Natan, and I think this is really important for people to understand. And if you can just touch upon it, the difference between rates in the U.S. I know it fluctuates from country to country, but just talk about the rates in the U.S. versus the rates of interest rates in Israel. And the second question from this person is it worth waiting for interest rates to come down, or should people move forward with their plan to buy something?
Right. So right now, interest rates in the States are 7%. Jerome Powell had a really nice speech on Friday, so there's a good potential for that to go higher. And in Israel, they're around 5%, give or take. That's also subject to change. But Israel, by and large, throughout the financial roller coaster that we've been on for the past year and a half, Israel's been, by and large, the cheaper place to get a mortgage. In terms of waiting, really, I think something to keep in mind is that one of the points of raising interest rates is to slow down the market. And so there is an expectation for prices to fall, from a theoretical perspective. Here in Israel, excuse me, that's just harder to do because of a supply constraint. And, feel free to reach out if you want to delve into this more. But once interest rates do start coming down, a lot of the people who have been waiting on the sidelines to buy are all going to really bottleneck and rush to buy. And it really may not be the smartest thing to do, waiting to buy too long because of that.
Right. And to add to that, some people ask me, does it make sense to wait to make aliyah to get the lower purchase tax? And the difference is 7.5%, which is a big difference from, in essence, goes down from 8% to 0.5% in most cases. But what I explain to people is that homes will most likely appreciate by a lot more than that in the year, right? So, or 2 years. And so, it depends, of course, on anyone's situation. But when you look at the numbers from that point of view, the prices will probably go up more than the difference that you'll be able to save in the purchase tax. There's a question here about mortgages for the final 80% in 2024. So yeah, the answer is absolutely. You put down 20% now for Achziv, and then the 80% is right before you buy the home before you take possession of your apartment, which, as I mentioned, could be middle to end of 2024. So that's helps from a cash flow point of view. There are rentals in this community. I can put you in touch with the realtor who actually lives in Achziv and also works there. And so if you want to try it out first, or maybe if you want to, move sooner than 2024, we have clients that bought an apartment and they're making Aliyah from Florida, and so they want to rent until the apartment's ready. So that is definitely something that is doable. Let's see what else here. So there's a question here, Avraham, about fees, and without getting into the details, but they just want to know are you paying, how is the fee usually structured? Do you pay beforehand? Do you pay at the end? How do you, structure your fee?
You mean the lawyer fee?
The legal fee, yeah, the lawyer fee.
Okay, in Israel, this is a very good question, because many Americans and people from abroad, they're used to the point that all the fees being paid upon closing, when you do the final payment to the seller, and then there is a distribution of all the payments to the realtor, to the lawyer, to all of those institutions. In Israel, actually, the payment is need to be paid upon signing, not upon closing. But again, every case is different. I can tell that some cases I delayed my payment even in 1 year. So it's depend. I see the most first and foremost the people in front of me, and not anything else.
Right. Also, a few questions about the security of Achziv, and what I can tell you again from my experience is that there hasn't been any crime there, nothing that I've heard of. There, to get into the parking lot, there's a gate, so not anyone can just drive up and park in the parking lot. There are cameras installed around the buildings, but there is no doorman. So just to be completely, honest, there's no doorman. Some people are used to that kind of level of security, but in Israel in general, everyone's looking out for everybody else, and there's a lot of apartments in Achziv that were bought as investment properties, and so the people that are always around there, and again, as more people move in, I think that that will help. And so from a security point of view, you see kids walking around. That's not it hasn't been an issue, and I don't believe that it will be. There's a question here about monthly costs. So there's really two costs. There's the municipal tax fees, and then there's the Vita or the building. The municipal is paid every other month, so it's bi-monthly. I think it's about 1,200 shekel for every 2 months, about 600 shekel per month. And then the Vita is about 350 shekel per month. So, it's something that is you need to be aware of, but it's not a lot of money that will really impact your decision. The insurance on the units, I don't know off the top of my head. I can check and see what we're paying, but it's also something that is that is not too expensive. Let's see here. There are. So somebody asked about the mamad, which is the safety room, and by law, I think 20 years ago or so, all new buildings are built now with a mamad included. So it's one of the rooms. So when I talk about a 3-room or a 4-room, it's one of the rooms is a mamad, and for all intents and purposes, it's just another bedroom. It's usually the same size of the other rooms. Rentals range from about 4,000 shekel to 5,500 shekel per month, depending on the size of the apartment. So that will give you a sense of what you can probably get in terms of rental if you wanted to buy something and rent it out. I think we covered most of the questions. Let me just see here and take another minute or two, see if there's anything else. I think we're good. Okay. Well, great. So thank you again. Thank you, Natan. Thank you, Avram. Brian, thanks for joining us. Brian's going to be following up with you guys. And so I just wanted to have him on here so you can just be aware of the questions and you can put a face with a name. Thank you to all of you who have joined us. We look forward to speaking to you. And we really want you to, we want to encourage you to join our webinars. We're going to be doing webinars on different topics. If you have a specific topic that you're interested in, reach out to me, let me know, and we'll try and accommodate everyone's needs. So thanks so much. Have a Shavua Tov, a good week, and we will see you soon. Be well, everybody. Take care.
Shavua Tov.
Shavua Tov.